Yes. Okay, hello everyone. I'm just going to introduce Robin again on the session, or the session especially, and then hand over the talk to Robin. So Robin is on the board of EKHO, which is in English, the Evangelical Christian groups of LGBTQ people in Sweden. In his presentation, Robin will talk about how EKHO, a nonprofit organization, endeavors to implement social responsibility and sustainability among Christians in Sweden towards the Christian LGBTQ community. His work in EKHO has included developing a mentorship program for and by Christian LGBTQ people, helping to create queer spaces in church and leading workshops. Robin will also talk about the process model, a certification program for inclusive congregations developed by EKHO called Regnbågsnyckeln, the rainbow key. And then, hold on, I'm going to go back. So, please, Robin.
Okay,
nice to hear.
Can everyone hear me? I hope so. Yes. First of all, English is not my first language, and I have this bad thing where I tend to ramble a lot. So if you think I talk too fast or too incohesive, please let me know in the comments because I can correct that thing. Yes, my name is Robin Paulonen, and I will be speaking on the topic that I poetically named Curing Homesickness, how a small group of people is trying to change the view of LGBTQ within the Christian spheres in Sweden. And a little background could be in place. Sweden is a rather secular country. Even though the Pentecostal church and the charismatic churches, alongside with the former state church, the Swedish church, make up, I think, over more than 6 million people, it is not self-evident that the role of faith has a part to play in society or how we now shape society. But of course, we have a cultural past as Christians here in Sweden and Protestants, to be more specific. So Christmas and Western celebrations and calendars is held. And I will be speaking as a representative of EKHO, an ecumenical Christian group for LGBTQI, where I am on the board of the association on a national level, but I'm also working on a mentorship program, which I do voluntarily. Everything I do for EKHO, I do voluntarily. So it's a kind of charity work, I guess you can say. But it's also a quest for, or a need I have to give back to my queer community. I have a human rights degree, master degree, where I focused on minority rights. More specifically, I focused on the LGBTQI rights and social responsibility, which I've implemented in my work with the EKHO, where I mainly focus on how to help fellow LGBT siblings of the Christian faith that wants to integrate their sexuality, but also or gender identity within their Christian faith. I try to do that in many ways. I will go further into how I try to do that in this lecture. And I will also speak about the mentorship program, which I've mentioned, and how I founded it with my dear friend and colleague, Lovisa Eriksson. Then I will go into the process model, which is the rainbow key, Regnbågsnyckeln in Swedish. And lastly, I will save some time for opening up for questions and clarifications of linguistical mistakes or whatever. Okay, so we start. And I will start by telling a story about a boy and his church. It's in the far region of the north, and the church is a Salvation Army church. It's a congregation made up of his entire family and friends. Growing up in a congregation or a communion, you basically grow up in an extended, tight-knitted family. Every old person in the room becomes a curious grandparent, maybe a teacher, but definitely a friend. And every child maybe become a sibling or a best friend even, or someone you look up to, someone who knows what they're doing maybe. These houses of worship becomes homes. I did so for myself, but many can testify to that. I, as many with me, have learned through church how to build families and lives and how to live Jesus-centered lives. This is very common in the charismatic and Pentecostal church, where you put a lot of effort and a lot of work and hard work in building something together that will stand throughout your lifetime, maybe even, but maybe also something you inherit. This is what church means. You inherit the church and then you are supposed to pass it on, and this is what we do. Of course, it's not as easy as that. There are sometimes difficulties with growing up and keeping a secret, because there comes an inescapable point where the secret is out. And when the secret is out concerning LGBTQI, you can lose everything. You can be thrown into secret meetings where pastors will pray for you to recover you from your sin, or you will try to find solace where there is no solace. And you can lose your family, you can lose the project building church, and you can lose the concept of love completely. I have seen this many a time, not only in my own life, but in countless of others. That is why I choose to go into these kinds of work where I work with LGBT rights within the church communities. And of course, this is not an isolated story of one family being torn apart due to what church says. This is something, and it's not just isolated to Christianity, it's something we can recognize concerning all people of faith and sexuality or non-conforming gender identities. There are countless examples of how queer siblings are being forced to erase their sexuality or gender identity and exclude themselves from Christian communities completely, or go the other route, where you force yourself into a heterosexual marriage because faith makes you choose this. It is what is expected of you. You're supposed to be straight. And if you're something else, maybe you can learn to live with a lie, or maybe you can cure yourself by going into heterosexual marriage. I've heard for some weeks ago, I also mentioned this example during the panel discussion. There are always in these examples where the church is mistreating an LGBT person, and they use the words correction. You're supposed to correct yourself so you can fall in line and be a part of the church again and be a part of the church community. And sometimes they can put it as easily as this. Find a way to correct your defect. You can choose celibacy, for example. It is almost the same thing as you choose to wear eyeglasses if you have poor eyesight. This is a sad truth where we are at in Sweden. There are still a lot of prejudice against LGBT people within Christian spheres and communities, but also within churches. And it has severe repercussions on our community. And this is maybe also a place where homesickness starts, when you're not allowed to be a part of the home you were born to build into, where you were expected to contribute to. And homesickness, your home is not longer your home. You've been shunned away because church is not always a place for LGBT people. So of course you're unhappy because you're being far away from home. EKHO is doing its best to cure or help ventilate all these feelings of homesickness or otherness or xenophobia that is thriving in some of our churches today. But it didn't start today. EKHO, the group, Ecumenical Groups for Christian LGBTQ People, has existed in Sweden since 1976, I think. And then there were 3 people in that group. They started the group under the larger health rights organization called RFSL, and then they named themselves the Christian group. Soon after that, EKHO was born. Those 3 people went on to create EKHO. Then it stood for the Ecumenical Group for Christian Homosexuals. But over time, more people has been involved in shaping what EKHO is today, and the new title doesn't adhere to Christian homosexuals, but to all of the spectrum. Everyone should be included. And from going also from being an angry, small group of want to change things up and want to stir things up, we've become a quite well-known or established name, or as much as you can be that, in the very small intersection of Christian faith and LGBT in Sweden. During our soon 50-year history, we have fought for human rights, or rights for opportunities of LGBT in Christian churches, communions, or congregations. And EKHO has shown that it is possible to create change or be a part of change, and also be a part of the change that even change the definition of love. That love possibly could now be definitioned by inclusion and openness. Several communities have changed their views on issues guarding or concerning sexuality, gender identity, and a lot of things, and now are striving for more a form of congregation that wants to celebrate diversity and build church together again. This is important work, but it's very complex, as you can already hear. Today, EKHO is an umbrella organization. There are 5 local associations which are placed in Stockholm, Malmö, Göteborg, where I'm at, and then we have an association called Sydöst, Southeast. And as a part of the national association, I try to support, inspire, and encourage the important work the local associations are doing in communicating with churches, helping traumatized families, and building communities for our LGBT siblings who has been traumatized or just looking for a place among themselves. But we're also reaching beyond the Christian sphere. We are also reaching for our queer community. As Christians, we have responsibility to see and seek to heal the world. And of course, that should be a part of EKHO's identity as well. Being a Jesus-centered non-profit organization where volunteers, such as myself, shape and reshape how EKHO is working or working on, it's important. Everyone tries to contribute to the movement the way we are fallen to do. Like, I'm good at organizing, so I organize things, but we have singers, we have creative people, we have people with different experiences than mine, and in this place we can meet, we can talk, and we can discuss. We can see each other and lift each other and encourage each other to continue to be a part of a church, to leave a church and find a new one. And maybe if we can be that self-indulgent, we have become somewhat of a safe haven for people of our kind. From mentorship programs, we are also giving platforms for trans Christian groups as well. We publish books on queer theology, and we're collecting voices of experience. This is important as we move forward because we forget history, so we have to remember, and we do that by printing them down, for example. One of those books we made is this one, but it's in Swedish. At least we had each other. It is 40 years of ecumenical work for and of Christian LGBTQ people. It is a short but well-written and heavy testimony of what queer people can do if we set our minds to it. Another example of that is this book, which is the first one of its kind. It is an initiative took by Ingela Zetterling, and the title says, I read it in English, Who Do You Say That I Am? It is about its tales and testimonies about being trans and Christian and faith. It is a book that contains life stories from trans people who has also committed to the Christian faith. And it's been far too silent about this subject, and EKHO is very proud to actually be part of making that change and being a voice for people maybe who can't be their own voice all the time. We are frequently invited to secret meetings. As you know, in the Charismatic Church and in the Pentecostal Church, and also in the Swedish churches, this topic of sexuality and gender is hard to talk about. And sometimes people don't even want to be associated with LGBT people. That is when EKHO and its allies step in, and we start to ask questions about how can we be quiet diplomacy. In some sense, we're doing that as well. We are creating spaces and meetings with leaders of churches, pastors, and priests to discuss these questions and to open up a conversation and a dialogue. Sometimes we even ask ourselves in when there is places to, for example, the congregations that Ekumenia Kyrkan has once a year. We stand there and we have a table with books, and we're ready to discuss what lies close to our hearts. And it's important to remember that the people who are standing at these congregations are ready to confirm and say that you can be Christian and LGBT as well. And maybe that even is a message to be celebrated and not just turned down. EKHO holds summer camps as well for youth kids, alongside with, or before the pandemic at least, we celebrated Mass and invited to what we call Fredagssnack, which is Friday talks, where we invite guests who can come and speak about their experience of faith and LGBT. For example, maybe we invite the rabbi from the synagogue down the street, or maybe the imam from the islands nearby, to talk about topics that concerns us and our siblings in faith. But above everything else, I think, or I hope, that EKHO is trying to offer a voice to the LGBT minority within the Christian sphere here in Sweden, with the message that you can be unapologetically queer, gay, or whatever label you describe to, and Christian. That you can be at least both. Today we are 150 members, and we're all doing as good as we can. to lift EKHO and the work we're doing to ship that forward. I will now go in and talk a little bit more about the mentorship program. And after that, I will go to the process model, which is the Regnbågsnyckeln. And I think, yes, we're on time, so that's good. And also, if there's anything I need to clarify, don't forget to put it in the comments.
Yeah, I think you can choose to either take questions in between, like if you since you're going through different topics. What do you think? Do you want to now ask in between if somebody has any questions, and then if anyone has any questions about the mentorship program?
Yeah, sure. If there are any questions.
Could I just voice a question in here?
Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering, I hope you didn't mention and I missed it, but have you exported this mentorship program like also to other countries, or has it just been Sweden so far?
It has been Sweden so far, but it has been in English as well. So it's at least bilingual now. But since we have the pandemic, and the pandemic has proven that maybe we don't have to confine ourselves just to Sweden, but maybe English speakers as well. So that could be like an export maybe.
Right, but would you basically, would you be prepared to export this concept so there is nothing holding you back, just that you haven't done it previously?
No, exactly. A dream would be maybe that every church or every church community could have a mentor, or if someone is interested in becoming a mentor, they can use our materials as a board, or a, what do you call it, exit point, or like a starting point maybe. I'm more than willing to share the resources that we have come up with.
All right, so people from different countries are free to contact you then.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Okay. I don't think there are any other questions, maybe? No? And then I'll skip on to the mentorship program. I've mentioned it many a times, but it's one of my little babies maybe, so I feel very fatherly over this program. And it was actually created when me and the co-founder Lovisa Eriksson had a coffee in the spring 2018. We've just gotten to know each other, and we were sitting there talking about traumatization of LGBT people within the churches of Sweden. We were talking about our own experiences and lack of thereof, and how some part of us was spared trauma and some other parts weren't. What we did have in common was that things started to make sense when we met someone else who was also LGBT and Christian, who, without any doubt, owned both of those identities. And on that thought, we decided to talk to a priest that we know, and maybe also a psychologist, to see if they've heard something similar, or if they've experienced something similar. And that question evolved and evolved and evolved. And all of a sudden we stood there with the means to create a mentorship program. We wanted to give back to our queer siblings who have lost church or are finding themselves in closet and need someone to talk to. So we designed this program. And being a mentor, in our definition, means that we're having a conversation with a participant and a mentor where you can talk about life, you can talk about questions about faith, sexual orientation, and or gender identity, or what it means to be and identify as an LGBTQI person in a church? How do you act during kyrkfika, which is this the ceremonial thing you do after a mass? You go upstairs and then you have a coffee and you eat a cinnamon roll and you talk to people in your congregation. The mentor has no formal education, but it is a fellow human being, at least. Someone who has the participant's best interests in mind. It is important to remember that this is not a psychology. There is no therapy in this, but it is someone who can listen. There's no one with all the right answers, but maybe there is someone with like a sounding board where you can throw your ideas and maybe you can get a new perspective on that idea. The important thing is that the mentor and the participant can meet and share experience, or that maybe the mentor's single-handed most important thing to do is to say to the participant, you're allowed. You can be whatever you define as and still belong to a church. I've seen this happen a lot of times. I believe there's 3 steps. First, I say to a participant, you exist, I see you. The next thing is, you are allowed to be part of a church. The Christian community shouldn't throw you out with the bathwater. You are allowed to stay. And maybe I even know a church where you can go to. And the third part is a never-ending part. It's where you develop your faith or reaches into the scriptures of Bibles, and you are learning theology that is on your side instead of the theology that often is thrown against you. And by these 3 steps, you're rewriting your own history or your own story. You're creating a narrative, I believe, where you say, I'm LGBTQI and I am also Christian, and I'm here, and we can maybe start a discussion of how this will work. Because the experience also with the mentorship program is that churches has a tendency to write your story for you. You are a sinner, you are a sodomite, you're a daughter of Gomorrah. But by these 3 steps, they're very easy, and they're not judgmental. They're just an open invitation. And if you hand these 3 tips out, you can start to write your own story. And of course, we have some standards when you become a mentor, which I will briefly go through now. You get a course in coaching approaches. In mentorship, we work from coaching, which means that a mentor is primarily a ball plank or a sounding board, and doesn't have to sit with all the answers, because no one has all the answers. The mentor should never give advice that are unasked for. And of course, there should be you should be allowed a question bank, because maybe the first meeting is not what you thought it would be. So we drill our mentors in asking questions. What do you think about that? We have a workshop where you are frequently asked questions and you're just asking them back and forth. There are Socratic question marks or questions, and they're useful when you're getting stuck in the conversation. When the silence between the participant and the mentor is electric and something is not right, maybe you can start a new conversation with a question. And of course, the mentorship program is suitable for or maybe I'll just say like this: if you want to be a mentor, you need to be grounded in your identity as a LGBTQI person, but also your Christian faith. I've also mentioned this before. Yes, and as I said, the main goal with the mentorship program is to encourage to rewrite the story of yourself. It is to say you are allowed and you are not wrong, you are not sinful, and maybe the shame you're carrying is not yours to carry. And maybe this is a way to cure homesickness too. Maybe this is a way to open a door and march headstrong in, claiming spaces that has long off been closed off for people like us. And I hope this is a way to curing homesickness as well. I have a now, I see.
Yes, you can read it yourself if you want to.
If you're not sick of my voice already. Hi, Robin. This is from Miriam Rocks. What do you think? Can the queer Muslim community benefit from your mentorship program material? Yes, I think it could. The only thing is the theology part is made from the Christian holy text, of course. But if there is a scholar or an imam or someone who knows, maybe from this seminar, how the argument or the most common arguments the Muslim queers is receiving. So yes, of course, I would be happy to if I would, maybe I should translate it and maybe you can have it if you want to start it yourself. But I definitely think it should be, everyone should have the chance to write their own story and hold their own truth.
This sounds great. At least I think we should do it. Yeah. So we'll be in touch.
Nice. Okay.
All right.
I will go to the process model now, I think, if there aren't any more questions. Absolutely. I'll post it somewhere or contact me. I can send it maybe.
Well, if you want to, we can negotiate. You can think about it, and then if you want to, if it's okay for EKHO, we could post it on the resources page as well.
Absolutely, we can make a guide maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll ramble on, I guess.
Yes. Keep rambling. It's great.
We're soon to the end. Soon there will be questions. Okay. Yeah. The rainbow key. It's a creation between EKHO and the Swedish Church of Växjö. It was an initiative took at around 2016, I think, and it was a program that was created due to that the Swedish Church on a national level took resoluted to LGBTQI inform or lift up congregations' knowledge about what LGBT is. So basically there was a powerful decision made in 2013 where the Swedish Church recognized that they need to learn more about LGBTQI, and EKHO alongside with Svenska kyrkan i Växjö adhere that calling around 3 years later and made what we today call Regnbågsnyckeln or the rainbow key. Erik Gyll then was the chairperson at EKHO, alongside with Frida Olsson Sandahl representing Census and Katarina Hedqvist representing the Swedish Church of Växjö. They laid the foundations and the grounds and shaped what we today call the process model, Regnbågsnyckeln. During the years 2016 until 2017, they tried this method or model in Växjö. And really just 1 year later, the Swedish Church resoluted that this could be offered to every church bound to the Swedish church. The rainbow key is a LGBTQI label you can put on your church. It looks like this. But to get this, you have to go through different kinds of steps. Every employee in a parish has to undergo a process modeled, the process model, which is to create a more inclusive church, and we'll have to work, and they promise by doing this, to work efficiently and actively for a diverse and open congregation. This process consists of education, study circles, visionary work, but also reflection, which then leads to that the congregation will receive this mark, of course, but also a starting point from which they can develop a more inclusive congregation. And in the process, you also are demanded to prepare a diversity vision policy, which the church should adhere. And then finally you receive the rainbow key label, or emblea, whatever you call it. And to do this, you have to go through 6 different steps, which we had, with some inspiration, with help from the Pride flag, we made this, what do you call it, step maybe. So step 1 is red, the first thing. And the first step is quite easy, actually. The congregation shows that they're interested in this kind of education. They can also motivate why they want to do the process model and what they hopefully maybe could gain from it. So an initial contact is made between the board of Regnbågsnyckeln, or EKHO, or census, and the congregation. The orange step is the step where the congregation's employees and board will receive an education on example norms, interactions, how do you interact with LGBT people. Sometimes you have to be very basic. And inclusion, and of course LGBT, and LGBTQI, what does it stand for? And the material for these lectures is based on the literature that Erik Gyll and Frida once developed, and it's called So That I Can Come In, and it looks like this. This one is in Swedish, but this is very easy, it's very approachable. This is nothing scary about a little tiny book. And inside here you have everything you need to know. It's how it is made and how you can work with the, or start working on your diversity policy, but also it's stories, mainly stories from LGBT people and faith, which should be like a focal point or a starting point from where the discussions you will later have will start. Which happens in the next step, which is yellow. The employees and the board members use these materials and create study circles where they are discussing the materials. They're actually discussing the stories of LGBT people from this book. And the discussion of this is very important. And I would say it is crucial that they discuss real facts and real stories of LGBT people and LGBTQI experiences within the church. Why? You may ask. Because this will be the point from what they will, this is the point where they can ask and learn, and without harming any LGBTQI person, but they can ventilate and they can reason and they can go back and forth, and during the lecture and the material find common ground or points of reference maybe. So they can go back and reflect on, oh, what happened here? Do I have any example? Because as we know, practice makes some kind of perfect. So maybe it's the first time I meet an LGBTQI person and I don't know what to say. But wait a minute, when we discussed this, someone I respected or heard from, maybe someone taught me. and thus we have created a reference point, which is very important. And hopefully this reference point from these discussions will go along when the congregation later go into the creating and forming of the diversity inclusion policy. Then we come to the green step. There's many steps, but now there's only 3 left, and now we're on the green. The congregation identifies by itself and evaluates what kind of changes they need to do to be more inclusive, and what they need to do to create this new diversity vision policy. So basically, during the green step, they look at their own church and their own congregation, and they ask, what are we already doing? What can we be more efficient in doing, and what can we say or portray to make LGBTQI people feel at home here? And then they look at themselves and they reflect, and this will later also be good when you come to the blue step, but also when you lay your foundations for what the diversity inclusion policy will entail. So you have all of that. So now you have had a quick run through. You've had initial contact, you have discussed these things through the experiences of LGBT people, and you have looked at yourself. What are we doing? And then you might see there are gaps still. There are still gaps where we can't, where the education was good, but our congregation is facing something else. Maybe we need help with that. And that is where the blue step come in. The blue step is the deepened education on topics where congregations tell them or say that we need more help with this. We need to be strengthened on these topics because we don't know enough already. And so it could be something from previous steps that we go through again, and we deepen it and make the knowledge almost like cemented, like very grounded. Because we know if we don't lay our foundation correctly or have spaces where you can, or create spaces where you can actually like go back to what were we talking about? What is the foundation? What is the most important central part? What is the core? If we don't do the hard work, the whole of the house or whatever we're building will shatter and fall in a few years. So therefore, we have included the blue step as a way to secure. And then we come to the purple. When you've done all of this work, the purple step is when you formulate and create the diversity vision policy. And then you send it into the board of the Regnbågsnyckeln. And hopefully you'll get approved. Maybe there you'll receive some corrections where you have to go through it again, and then you send it in again. And only then you receive this process key, the starting point. Now we have all the facts we need, sort of, probably, hopefully, if you've done your homework correctly and read the manuals and have the discussions and materials. So now we're on our way, because just as the mentorship program, maybe the purple step in the rainbow key never really ends, or the blue one maybe, because you always need to remind yourself you have to keep learning, and this could be a reminder for that. Now I see this one is a little bit broken. I hope we don't send that to anyone. It also has the wrong year. The rainbow key is owned by EKHO, but also Census. And there is a cost of this process as well. And it's roughly 30,000 Swedish kronas. I don't know how that translates to either euros or dollars. But if you are a small congregation and you don't have the means to pay this fee, there are ways that the congregation itself has to pay. Maybe it is the Swedish church board who thinks, oh, this congregation really needs this. Or maybe Census could go in and they can sponsor. there are ways. We think that the financial part of it is not the most important part of it. It's the knowledge, which is the part, like the main thing. And also it is important to remember that the rainbow key, Regnbågsnyckeln, is not a certification in a sense, because it is it's more a process. You start something that probably will never finish, because you have to keep learning and relearning and redoing. And the rainbow key could be, and the policy that you're making could be a guide that will help you when you are building. See, the cost of this is 2,800 euros, Peg says. Yeah. Yes. Looking at the churches that have gone through this, you see that there's a lot of Swedish church-bound, or the Church of Sweden-bound congregation who's done this. We have still trouble with finding ways in to do this same process in the Frikyrka, or the free churches, or the charismatic churches in Sweden. Why? That question has many answers, and this is a weakness with this rainbow key. Maybe it is not a process that is suitable for those smaller churches, or churches that don't have the same means as, what can you say, the theological approach as the Swedish church has. Maybe. There are many things that can be discussed about this. But when we look at the history, the short history of Regnbågsnyckeln, we can see that there are a lot of interests in actually getting this kind of education. The churches are constantly in contact with EKHO, trying to learn more about what is this, what does it entail, what can we do, how can we benefit from this? Because our congregations needs this kinds of process, because we need to make sure that we are not falling through and letting people falling through the shares. So it's a growing interest. So that is a strength of the rainbow key. And for the future, I hope that the rainbow key will continue to develop, maybe collecting new stories of LGBTQI people. Maybe there should be a step just concerning the non-binary siblings in our community. What does that entail? Maybe we should have a discussion about that. As we have learned, is that we are never fully learned, and to be able to continue growing, we need to sit down and reflect on what we're doing right now. And what can history teach us? What has our short movement taught us? But what can we bring to the table? So in some sense, you continue to build the church, but from another angle. What EKHO is trying to do with the mentorship program, with its world analysis of the situation analysis of what is happening in Sweden, and what we're doing on a structural level, is to cure the homesickness. And if we can even make that happen for one person or one congregation, and tell the stories of all the people that we are meeting, we're doing something right, hopefully. And now I have been talking for many a minute, and I think I should open up for questions. Yes, I rushed through it, I'm sorry.
No, it was great. So yeah, now I think we could open up for questions. I think I want to begin actually with a comment that you were saying about that it's mainly the evangelical Lutheran churches that have been doing the process model, and and going back to the discussion in the evangelical group about individual church leaders fearing that they will be singled out. That I think that perhaps what Patrick was saying there about getting a group of people who are interested and then doing it at the same time, then it's not, you know, say that it's 4 or 5 non-Lutheran congregations that would do it at the same time, and then they just agree to do it at the same time so that they won't be as singled out. I think can really help, because then you have the support of one another, that you're doing it together.
It's very true. The Church of Sweden is very clear on this point, because they have a decision, the decision made 2013. So it's already like sanctioned or blessed, if you will, by the head of the church. But the other churches doesn't have the same kind of thing. Often you're a part of movement, but your individual church has their own beliefs and traditions, maybe even. So it's what you're saying is very, yeah.
So should we, I think we have about 33 participants here, and I think we could easily allow some people to open up their microphones and ask any questions that you have, or we have about 12 minutes? No, 7 minutes. Oh, I guess I'm getting a bit tired.
Rambler.
Yes. Okay. So I was going to say that if anyone wants to share a story or something like that, but that we might not have time for that. But any questions? Okay, so we could try at least talk about it, if we could get the mentorship program or some information in English on the resources page about the process model and the mentorship program. But we'll see what we can arrange.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think everybody is probably really in need to stretch their legs, and we'll be back in there's one. So there's a question that it was so that the mentorship program was available in English.
It will be. I have written it in English, or translated what exists today. So there will be. So I can send it maybe to you, Pick.
Yes, that would be awesome. Okay, and then we'll see. We'll try to post it on the resources page.
That's great. And thank you for the opportunity, and thank everyone who has listened to my ramble.
No, okay. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.